Rational thinkers, I am your strategic observer, Maggie Liu. Today's game isn't an ordinary engagement cancellation face-slapping, but a precise liquidation using marriage as a knife and status as bait. My fiancé's childhood sweetheart is pregnant. With only 2 months left before the wedding date, Pei Xiaoheng came to me with an awkward expression on his face. Yang, can the wedding date between the two of us be moved forward? Ningyue, she is already 2 months pregnant. She hasn't married yet, and if people find out, it will harm her reputation. I want to take the child in her belly as the eldest legitimate son and register them under your name. The Pei and Shi families set an engagement years ago. The legitimate son of me and Pei Xiaoheng is meant to inherit the businesses of the Shi and Pei families. The maid cried out of anger, but I smiled. Pei Xiaoheng dared to come to me because he was certain that due to the businesses of the Pei and Sheng families, I would not break off the engagement. Facing his expectant face, my voice was cold. Then let it be 10 days later, Pei Xiaoheng left happily. But little did he know, 10 days later, the person I'm going to marry is not him, but his unappreciated full younger brother. The late spring breeze brushed across Linan City. The decades-old begonia in the backyard of CA Manor was blooming in full glory, its pinkish-white petals gently floating down with the wind onto the blue stone pathway. Xie Yang sat on the soft red sandalwood daybed by the window, holding an extremely fine gold embroidery thread between her fingers. Holding her breath in full concentration as she brought down the final stitch onto the bright red satin. It was a waist handkerchief with a twin lotus pattern, bordered with fine gold piping all around. 2 lotus flowers snuggled against the emerald green lotus leaves with dense stitches that made them look lifelike. Miss, give your eyes a rest already. Her personal maid, Quiguo, lifted the curtain and walked in holding a bowl of warm lily and snow pear soup. Seeing the faint dark shadow under Xie Yang's eyes, she stomped her feet out of worry. You've been embroidering this handkerchief for 3 whole days already. Why wear yourself out like this? If eldest young Master Pei finds out, his heart will ache for you. Xie Yang pulled back her needle, snipped the thread cleanly with small silver scissors, and gently stroked the 2 twin lotuses with her fingertips. A very soft smile unconsciously rippled at the corners of her lips. This is a once-in-a-lifetime major event, how could I leave it to someone else? He travels year-round doing business for the Pei family, and his clothes, shoes and socks have always been quite rough. Once we get married, there must be someone caring to look after him. Yes, our young lady hasn't even married in yet, but her heart has already completely leaned toward the Pei family. Quiguo set the sweet soup on the table, massaging Xie Yang's sore shoulders while teasing with a grin. Though then again, eldest young Master Pei treats young lady so well it goes without saying. Yesterday I went to the front to check the dowry list, and heard the steward say that among the betrothal gifts sent by the Pei family a few days ago, just South Sea pearls alone filled 3 whole large boxes. The 88 carrying frames of rosewood dowry prepared by our Shi family have even filled up the rear annex completely. Who in the entire Linan city doesn't envy young lady and eldest young Master Pei for being a match made in heaven? Listening to Quiguo's words, Xie Yang felt a touch of warmth in her heart. She picked up the sweet soup, took a sip, and let her gaze fall on the crabapple tree outside the window as her thoughts drifted far away. She and Pei Xiaoheng had truly known each other for so many years. When she was 5 years old, she accompanied her mother on a visit to the Pei residence. Playing around, she got lost behind the Pei family's rockery, accidentally scraped her knee and sat on the muddy ground crying loudly from the pain. It was that young boy, 2 years older than her, who crawled out from the rockery cave sweating with anxiety, awkwardly pulled out his handkerchief to wipe her tears, then took off his outer robe to carefully wrap around her, carrying her on his back all the way back to the main hall. When she was 8 years old, Linan City suffered a major flood, and several of the Xie family's raw silk shops were hit by the disaster, leaving Xie Yang unable to eat for several days in a row. Pei Xiaoheng braved the heavy rain, rolled up his pant legs, and trudged through the muddy water across half the street just to buy her a bag of her favorite candied kumquats. When he brought it to her, the oil paper package was clutched tightly in his arms, still warm, while he himself was drenched like a drowned rat. Coming down with a high fever the very next day, On the day of her 15-year-old hair-pinning ceremony right in front of both sets of parents, Pei Xiaoheng personally inserted a warm, flawless mutton, fat white jade, twin-flower hairpin into her hair bun, his eyes brimming with burning youthful passion, his voice so solemn it was almost like taking an oath. Yang Yang, once I go through my capping ceremony and take over the southern trade routes for the family, I will definitely marry you in grand style with an 8-bearer sedan chair and 10 miles of red dowry. The warmth and promises of those years, each and every single one, were etched onto Xie Yangyang's heart like a brand. Over the past 10 years, the Xi family grew bigger and bigger, relying on their exclusive craft in jewelry and silk. While the Pei family went through several ups and downs in the business world, with the Xi family always supporting them with all their resources behind the scenes. When Pei Xiaoheng needed to open up the southern jewelry trade route, Xi Yangyang unhesitatingly supplied 70% of the CA family's ancestral southern pearl and jadeite stock to the Pei family at priority low prices. Everyone in Linnan's business circle knew that the Xi family's eldest young lady was not only breathtakingly beautiful, but also single-mindedly set on becoming the Pei family's eldest young mistress. In just half a month, it would be their agreed wedding date. "Miss, the eldest young master is here." Outside the courtyard gate, the crisp voice of a little maid calling out was suddenly heard. Xie Yangyang's hand holding the porcelain spoon paused slightly, and her eyes instantly brimmed with bright radiance. She hurriedly put down the soup cup, stood up to tidy her light crimson silk skirt, and carefully squeezed in her palm that lapel handkerchief embroidered with twin lotuses she had just finished. "Why is Xiaoheng here at this hour? Isn't he checking the accounts of the returning caravan at the estate outside the city?" Xie Yangyang asked softly, yet her feet were already involuntarily moving toward the outer room. The bead curtain was pulled open abruptly, making a crisp clattering sound. Against the light, a tall, slender figure stepped inside. It was none other than Pei Xiaoheng. However, before the smile on Xi Yangyang's face could fully bloom, it quietly froze the moment she saw Pei Xiaoheng's expression clearly. The young man, usually so high-spirited and all smiles, looked exceptionally disheveled right now. His sapphire blue satin robe was full of wrinkles, his collar was crooked, dark stubble showed on his chin, and his sunken eyes were bloodshot with red. His whole being exuded a panic and anxiety on the verge of collapse. "Xiaoheng?" Xie Yangyang's heart gave a sudden thud. She stepped forward quickly, instinctively wanting to reach out and tidy his messy collar. "What's wrong with you? What happened? Did something go wrong with the caravan outside the city?" However, before her hand could even touch the corner of his clothes, Pei Xiaoheng jerked back half a step as if he had been shocked by electricity. Xie Yangyang's hand froze in midair. A corner of the warm, bright red embroidered handkerchief in her palm peeked out. The twin lotus embroidered with gold thread glimmering under the sunlight filtering through the window lattice. Yet Pei Xiaoheng didn't even look down for a single glance. His eyes darted erratically, staring fixedly at the ground, his chest heaving violently, as if Xie Yangyang's very presence made him feel utterly suffocated and weighed down with guilt. "Yangyang," Pei Xiaoheng's voice was as hoarse as dry, cracked wood, carrying a slight tremble that was hard to suppress. The atmosphere in the room instantly turned cold. Even Quiguo, who was waiting on the side, sensed that something was wrong, holding her breath as she backed away toward the folding screen. Xie Yangyang slowly pulled her hand back, clutching her embroidered handkerchief tightly in her palm, her fingernails almost digging into her flesh. She suppressed that unprovoked panic in her heart and spoke softly. "Xiaoheng, what on earth is wrong? Between the two of us, what can't be spoken directly?" Pei Xiaoheng closed his eyes in pain. He took a deep breath as if summoning all his strength, then opened his eyes abruptly, staring intently at Xie Yangyang. "Yangyang, the wedding date on the 8th of next month has to be changed." Xie Yangyang's eyelashes fluttered lightly. "Change the date? Why change it?" "The wedding invitations from both families have long been sent to all the prominent families in Linnan City. The guests, banquets, and rituals have all been settled. If we change the date now, where will both our families put their face?" Not postponed, moved forward. Pei Xiaoheng gritted his teeth tightly, his voice so hurried he was almost incoherent. "Yangyang, we must get married in 10 days. and and it's not you and me getting married. Xie Yangyang froze. She doubted her own ears, staring fixedly at the extremely familiar face before her, her mind going completely blank. What are you saying? What do you mean it's not you getting married to me? Pei Xiaoheng looked into Xie Yangyang's eyes, which were as clear as water. A flash of deep pain and shame passed through his eyes, but he closed his eyes anyway, hardened his heart and forced out those words that hit like a thunderbolt. In 10 days I must marry Song Ningyue. Boom. Xie Yangyang felt a violent roar in her head as if she had been struck by lightning. All the sounds around her ears seemed to fade away in an instant, leaving only her own heart suddenly out of control and beating wildly. Song Ningyue, the unfavored concubine-born daughter of the Song family, that delicate woman whom Pei Xiaoheng happened to save half a year ago when she was being bullied in a tea house. Who did you say? Xie Yangyang's voice was extremely faint, so soft it seemed like a gust of wind could blow it away. In just a few breaths, all color drained from her face, leaving her as pale as paper. Seeing her like this, a strong sense of heartache flashed in Pei Xiaoheng's eyes. He reached out to grab Xie Yangyang's shoulders, but Xie Yangyang subconsciously turned away to dodge him. Pei Xiaoheng's hand caught nothing, and he let his arms drop dejectedly. Bending his knees with a thud, he actually knelt straight down right in front of Xie Yangyang. Young master, Kuiguo cried out in fright. Xie Yangyang stood frozen on the spot, looking down at this man who had once sworn to marry her with an 8-bearer sedan chair. All the blood in her body feeling as if it had completely frozen into ice at this moment. Yangyang, I'm sorry. I deserve to die. I'm not human. Pei Xiaoheng raised his hand and slapped himself hard across the face, his voice filled with tears and despair. Last month, the caravan was attacked at the Huai River, and I was poisoned. Ningyue stayed by my bed day and night to take care of me. That night, my high fever wouldn't break and I wasn't in my right mind, so I mistook her for you. Pei Xiaoheng's voice echoed in the spacious, dead silent warm room, every single word like a dull knife dipped in deadly poison, stabbing hard into Xie Yangyang's heart, and then repeatedly slicing and grinding away. Half a month ago, Ningyu fainted at the Song Manor. The doctor diagnosed that she is already 2 months pregnant. Pei Xiaoheng looked up at Xie Yangyang with tears streaming down his face, his eyes full of pleading and pressure. Yangyang, Ningyue is just a concubine's daughter of the Song family. The Song family has strict rules, and old Mistress Song is a ruthless person who tolerates no flaws. If word gets out that she got pregnant out of wedlock, she'll be drowned in the pond. The child in her belly is Pei Xiaoheng's, flesh and blood, a living human life. I can't just watch both mother and child die. So, Xie Yangyang heard her own voice asking. That voice was so calm that even she found it unfamiliar. No hysteria, no weeping tears, only a bone-deep numbness and coldness. Pei Xiaoheng thought Xie Yangyang had softened, and a flash of hope suddenly burst in his eyes. He hurriedly crawled forward 2 steps on his knees and said eagerly, Yangyang, I know this is unfair to you. But right now, this is the only way. 10 days from now, the original wedding date set by our 2 families remains unchanged. And I'll marry Ningyue first, to give her a status and save her and the baby's lives. The Song family is pressing hard, and in another month her bump won't be able to be hidden anymore. Then where does that leave me? Xie Yangyang looked down at him, her fingers clutching that red handkerchief tight, its gold thread edges biting deep into the soft flesh of her palm, seeping with excruciating pain. I swear, there's only you in my heart. Pei Xiaoheng raised 3 fingers, swearing oaths with an expression bordering on madness. Once Ningyue enters the house and the baby is born safely, and after half a year or so when the storm passes, I will immediately marry you into the house as my primary wife. At that time, Ningyu will be demoted to an equal wife, no, demoted to a concubine. The mistress of the Pei family will always be you, Xie Yangyang. The position of my primary wife in this lifetime belongs to you alone. He even tried to reach out and pull at Xie Yangyang's skirt, his voice groveling all the way into the dirt. Yangyang, you're so kind, so generous. Usually you'd even save an injured bird, so you'll definitely understand me, right? This is a human life. Save Ningyue and save me too. Kind, generous. Save Song Ningyue and save him too. Xie Yangyang only felt a surge of blood churning in her chest and a sickly, sweet, metallic nausea rising in her throat. It turned out 10 years of being childhood sweethearts, 10 years of giving everything to help him. And countless safety talismans prayed for before the Buddha couldn't match another woman's 2-month pregnancy, couldn't match his lustful passion on another woman's bed. And now, after he messed up and got someone pregnant with a bastard, he wants to trample on her dignity, trample on the Xie family's reputation, and trample on her 10 years of sincere devotion just to fulfill his so-called benevolence and responsibility. Xie Yangyang slowly lowered her head, looking at the handkerchief embroidered with twin lotuses in her palm, slightly damp with sweat. The 2 lotus flowers snuggled together on it looked so ironic, so absurd right now, like a loud slap landed hard on the face of that naive, stupid Xie Yangyang of the past. She didn't cry, not even a single tear fell. Only those eyes of hers, which were originally bright and gentle like the misty rain of Jiangnan, turned to ashes inch by inch in this dead silence, finally becoming a bottomless cold pond. The light inside the room dimmed bit by bit. The evening sun's lingering glow spilled through the carved window frames onto the floor, stretching Pei Xiaoheng's kneeling shadow extremely long and twisted. He remained kneeling, looking up at Xie Yangyang with a gaze that was almost greedy yet full of pleading. In his past understanding, Xie Yangyang was always gentle and thoughtful. Even if he occasionally made bad business decisions and lost money, as long as he frowned slightly, Xie Yangyang would gently smooth the furrow between his brows, then transfer money from the Xie family's accounts to cover his losses. He firmly believed that although Xie Yangyang would be heartbroken this time, she would ultimately compromise, because she had loved him for 10 years and she couldn't live without him. Yangyang, say something, don't scare me. Crawling on his knees, Pei Xiaoheng moved forward another half-inch, his voice trembling. Xie Yangyang looked down at him from above, the emotions that had been churning in her eyes fully faded, leaving only a frightening chill and scrutiny. Looking at this man's handsome yet weak and selfish facial features, she suddenly felt that her past 10 years were like an absurd, ridiculous dream. Xiaoheng, did you say just now that you're marrying Song Ningyue in 10 days is to save her and the child's lives? Xie Yangyang finally spoke, her voice so calm that it lacked even a single ripple. Pei Xiaoheng felt as if granted a reprieve and nodded repeatedly. Yes, Yangyang, it's all to save a life. If I don't marry her, the Song clan won't accept her, and she really will die. As long as you nod and agree, I'll go offer a humble apology to Uncle Xie and Aunt Xie in person. Even if Uncle Xie breaks my legs, I won't complain at all. Offer a humble apology. Xie Yangyang sneered the laugh, extremely faint, yet it prickled Pei Xiaoheng's eardrums like fine needles. My Xie family has been established in Linan for 100 years. A respectable merchant family of good standing. You, Pei Xiaoheng, and I, Xie Yangyang, have been betrothed since childhood, halfway through the 3 letters and 6 rites known to the whole city. Now as the wedding date approaches, the groom switches the bride. Where does that leave my Xi family's face? How badly will my parents' backbones be jabbed at by the people of Linan? Pei Xiaoheng turned pale and hurriedly defended himself. It won't. We can claim to the outside world, claim that you're unwell and the wedding date is postponed. In a few months. Enough. Xie Yangyang coldly interrupted him. The last trace of warmth in her eyes vanished completely. He had even thought of an excuse for her, making her, Xie Yangyang, feign illness to step aside, fulfilling the illicit affair and deep affection between him, Pei Xiaoheng, and Song Ningyue. What an impeccably calculating young Master Pei. You go back first. Xie Yangyang turned around, her back to him, her voice betraying neither joy nor anger. This matter is of great importance. Let me think about it. Pei Xiaoheng froze for a moment, clearly not expecting Xie Yangyang to neither fly into a rage and kick him out, nor immediately agree in tears. But looking at Xie Yangyang's straight yet thin back, he was convinced in his heart that she was just thin-skinned as a woman and couldn't wrap her head around it right away. All right, Yangyang, take a good rest. I won't force you. Pei Xiaoheng stood up, patted the dust off his knees. and his tone even carried a hint of relieved lightness. "I know you are the most sensible. Don't worry, once this crisis passes, I, Pei Xiaoheng, will work like a horse and an ox for the rest of my life to compensate you." He gave Xie Yangyang's back a deep look, turned around, and quickly exited the warm pavilion. The sound of footsteps gradually faded into the distance until completely disappearing deep into the courtyard. Miss Quiguo, who had been biting her lip tightly all along, finally couldn't hold it back any longer. She suddenly fell to her knees with a thud at Xie Yangyang's feet, her tears rolling down like broken strings of pearls. "First, young master, how could he do something worse than a dog or pig? How could he be worthy of you? Over these years, how much grievance have you suffered and how much silver have you spent for him and for the Pei family? Yet he actually wants to break off your engagement for an enchantress he hooked up with outside." Xie Yangyang stood there, unmoving, until the wind outside blew against the window lattice with a soft creak. All of Xie Yangyang's strength seemed to be completely drained in an instant. Her body swayed violently, her legs went soft, and she fell backward as if completely depleted of strength. "Miss?" Quiguo exclaimed, scrambling up to support her. Xie Yangyang collapsed onto the soft couch, her palms slowly unclenching. The twin lotus handkerchief stained with the blood from her palm fell to the ground. On the bright red satin, that streak of dark red blood was strikingly eye-catching, staining the gold thread-embroidered twin lotuses into a filthy mess. Xie Yangyang looked at that handkerchief, her chest heaving violently, and a sharp, dry pain suddenly surged in her eyes. "Quiguo, close the door," Xie Yangyang ordered hoarsely. "Miss, close it, go outside and keep guard, no one is allowed in." Quiguo looked at her young mistress's face, pale to the point of being almost transparent, and didn't dare to disobey, wiping away her tears. She backed out and gently pulled the door shut. In the dim, deathly silent room, Xie Yangyang was the only one left. Curled up in the corner of the soft couch, she finally stopped suppressing her emotions, clutching her chest tightly with both hands and gasping heavily for air as her tears gushed out like a bursting dam. There were no heart-wrenching screams, only whimpers and tremors spilling from deep within her throat, suppressed to the extreme. That was the boy she had loved for 10 whole years. That was Pei Xiaoheng, who had shielded her behind him since childhood, bought her warm kumquats and promised her a lifetime. She used to think that even if the business world ebbed and flowed and people's hearts were treacherous, as long as she turned around, Xiaoheng would always be her sturdiest harbor. But in the end, the one who hurt her the deepest and pushed her into the bottomless abyss was precisely this man she had given her all to love. "Mother." Xie Yangyang hugged her knees and buried her face deep into her arms. In her mind, the scene from 3 years ago, right before her critically ill mother passed away, surfaced uncontrollably. That day was also a dusk just like this. Her mother's skinny, bony hand tightly held her hand, her clouded eyes filled with worry and reluctance. "Yang, in Mother's whole life, the one I worry about most is you. You have a strong personality and value affection, but men from merchant families are mostly fickle and heartless. Remember Mother's words, no matter how much you love someone in the future. Never hand over all of the Shi family's foundation and the trump cards in your hands. If one day your true heart is trampled on, don't wallow in self-pity. A daughter of the Xie family must cut ties decisively when it's time, rather be broken jade than intact tile." Her mother's weak yet firm voice before her death was like a sudden clap of thunder in the dark night, abruptly exploding inside Xie Yangyang's chaotic, pain-racked mind. "Make a clean break when it's time. Better to be a shattered jade than an intact tile." Xie Yangyang's body shuddered violently, and her weeping gradually stopped. She slowly raised her head, looking at the empty, chilly room through her tear-blurred eyes. What could self-pity bring back? Go beg him, make a scene with him, or beg the Pei family parents to stand up for her. The Pei family's silk business in Linnan currently relies entirely on the Xie family for support. If Father Pei and Mother Pei found out, they might give Pei Xiaoheng a thorough scolding, but what then? For the sake of that so-called Pei family bloodline and their reputation, in the end they would still persuade her, Xie Yangyang, to be sensible and understanding, urging her to swallow her pride and accept Song Ningyue. When that time comes, what would Xie Yangyang be? A main wife kept out of charity. A joke who has to hand over her own husband and an unborn eldest son by a concubine on a silver platter. No, never. Xie Yangyang raised her hand and fiercely wiped away the tear stains on her face with her sleeve. These tears were shed for her naive, foolish past self, and were also the last time she would shed them for Pei Xiaoheng. She stood up from the soft couch and walked to the bronze mirror. The woman in the mirror had slightly messy hair and red eyes, but deep within those eyes that were originally soft and fragile, a resolute, cold flame had ignited. Xie Yangyang picked up the ivory comb on the desk, meticulously combing her messy hair at the temples back into neat order, put on a cold jasper hairpin, and took some cosmetic powder to gently dab around the corners of her eyes, covering up that hint of redness. After doing all this, she looked down at the dirty twin lotus handkerchief on the ground. Xie Yangyang didn't pick it up. She just raised her foot, stepped on the twin lotus, and walked past with a blank expression. Creak. The door was pushed open again. Kui Guo, who was waiting outside, hurriedly turned around when she heard the sound. Seeing her young lady walking out looking completely normal, even colder, more beautiful and more composed than usual, she couldn't help but freeze. Miss. Looking at the cold moon gradually rising in the courtyard, Xie Yangyang said calmly, "Go bring the eldest young master back." Ah, Quiguo was a bit bewildered. "Miss, do you really want to? Go." Xie Yangyang's voice wasn't loud, yet it held an unquestionable authority. A few minutes later, Pei Xiaoheng, who hadn't gone far yet, hurriedly returned to Xi Manor. When he stepped into the warm chamber again, he saw Xie Yangyang sitting upright in the main seat, holding a cup of freshly brewed hot tea in her hand. Her expression as cold as frost. "Yang, have you thought it through?" Suppressing the wild joy in his heart, Pei Xiaoheng stepped forward quickly. Xie Yangyang raised her eyes to look at him, the corners of her lips curling up slightly, revealing an extremely faint yet bone-chillingly cold smile. "I've thought it through." Xie Yangyang gently set down the teacup, the porcelain lid clinking against the tea bowl with a crisp sound. "Xiaoheng, you're right. A human life is at stake, and Miss Song is carrying the Pei family's flesh and blood in her belly. There must be no delay whatsoever." Hearing this, Pei Xiaoheng trembled all over with excitement, his eyes filled with ecstasy. "Yang, I knew you were the most understanding. I knew no woman in Linan City could compare to you." Xie Yangyang looked at his ecstatic, ugly display, the cold smile at the corners of her mouth growing deeper. "So the wedding date doesn't need to be postponed." Xie Yangyang looked straight into his eyes and said word by word, "Let's set it 10 days from now then. In 10 days you marry your sweetheart into the house." Pei Xiaoheng was so excited that he became incoherent, even wanting to step forward and grasp Xie Yangyang's hand. "Good, good." 10 days later, "Yang, wait for me. I swear, in 1 year at most, I will definitely come back with an 8-bearer sedan chair to marry you." Xie Yangyang didn't respond to his words, but just quietly watched him express his gratitude joyfully, then turn and leave with light steps. As if a 1,000-pound burden had been lifted, his back full of longing for a new marriage, a beloved wife and a young child. Until Pei Xiaoheng's figure completely vanished into the night, Xie Yangyang stood before the threshold, the smile at the corners of her mouth only then fading away bit by bit. She slowly raised her hand and pulled out the twin-flower jade hairpin tied at her waist that Pei Xiaoheng had given her back then. Her 5 fingers opened. Crack. The warm, smooth mutton fat white jade slammed hard onto the rigid blue stone slab, instantly shattering to pieces. The broken jade reflecting a bone-chilling cold light under the moonlight. "Quiguo, prepare the carriage," Xie Yangyang ordered coldly. Quiguo was startled. "Miss, it's so late. Where are we going?" Xie Yangyang raised her eyelids, looking toward that gold-wasting den in the west of the city that was ablaze with lights in the night, her voice calm without a ripple. "To Hanghai Yueming." As night fell, an inconspicuous green silk carriage drove through Linan City's quiet bluestone Long Street, heading straight toward the west of the city. Inside the carriage hung a small glass lantern with a dim yellow glow, gently swaying with the carriage's bumps. Quiguo sat on one side, her hands tightly twisting a handkerchief, looking at Xie Yangyang several times as if wanting to speak but holding back. "Miss, are we really going to that place to look for second young master?" Quiguo couldn't help asking in the end, lowering her voice. Her tone full of apprehension. Who in all of Linan City doesn't know that Shanghai Yuming is the most lavish and unfathomable pleasure den in the entire city? And second young Master Pei, he frequents brothels all year round, has virtually severed ties with the Pei family, and acts in such an eccentric and ruthless manner that even Master Pei can't control him. Going to look for him now? Aren't you just a lamb walking into a tiger's den? Xi Yangyang leaned against the bolster, her eyes slightly closed, her expression appearing exceptionally calm in the dim light and shadow. A lamb walking into a tiger's den. The corners of Xi Yangyang's lips curled into a self-deprecating smile. Quiguo, do you think Pei Xiaoheng is some gentle, kind and honorable man? Sometimes an outright jackal is actually much cleaner than a hypocrite in sheep's clothing. What's more was Pei Huijin, the playboy rake in the eyes of others, truly as vile as the rumors made him out to be. A scene from last month involuntarily surfaced in Xie Yangyang's mind. It was mid-last month when a Xie family caravan transporting top-grade jadeite and ambergris from Nanyang was suddenly ambushed by bandits on the official road. That group of mountain bandits acted with extreme ruthlessness. They clearly were not out for money, but aimed to silence the Xie family caravan and cut off the Xie family's supply. Afterwards, Xi Yangyang found out that they were desperate outlaws secretly bought off by their rival in Lin'an City, the Zhao family. That night, Xi Yangyang personally led her people to rush to the manor outside the city to handle the aftermath. On the way back to the city, they were ambushed. The few guards accompanying her were outnumbered, and Xi Yangyang's life was hanging by a thread. Right at the critical moment when that poison-dipped steel blade was about to slash into her face, 3 fine steel crossbow bolts tore through the dark night, hitting every target without miss and instantly piercing the throats of 3 assassins. Following that, several dark shadows swept out like ghosts, cleanly and ruthlessly wiping out all the remaining assassins. By the time Xi Yangyang lifted the carriage curtain, still shaken, she only saw from afar a young man draped in a black cloak atop a white horse at the end of Long Street. The night wind whipped his cloak, and the moonlight outlined his sharply chiseled profile and eyes as cold as chilly stars. He didn't step forward to claim credit, nor did he even say another word. He merely took a distant look at her in the night, and after confirming she was safe and sound, turned his horse around and faded into the deep night. Hanging from that person's waist was none other than the dark iron twin fish pendant unique to Shanghai Yuming. Everyone in Linan City thought that the second young master of the Pei family was an unlearned rebellious son, and that the Pei family only thrived in the business world thanks to the support of the Xi family. But Xie Yangyang, having managed the Xi family's accounts for years, had vaguely realized as early as a year ago that the true mastermind behind those massive money lines and hidden storefronts secretly circulating throughout Linan City and several Jiangnan provinces all pointed to this gold mine of a place in the west of the city, Shanghai Yuming. It wasn't that Pei Huijin didn't fight, he just disdained to compete in that cramped mess of the Pei family. "We've arrived, miss." The coachman pulled on the reins, and the carriage came to a steady stop. Xi Yangyang put on a plain veiled hat hanging with light gauze, and stepped down from the carriage holding Quiguo's hand. Looking up before her stood a 5-story building with flying eaves rising high from the ground. In front of the entrance, 2 pure bronze Bixie beasts taller than a person glinted coldly under the lights, and on the black painted plaque with gold lettering, 4 large characters were written in a sweeping calligraphy: Shanghai Yuming. Unlike the vulgar, powdery atmosphere of ordinary brothels, quiet and precious agarwood incense burned here, and the guards greeting guests at the door were all agile and sharp-eyed. A deacon in black had long been waiting by the door. Seeing Xie Yangyang get off, he was neither surprised nor did he question her, but simply bowed respectfully. "Miss Xie, Master has been waiting on the top floor for a long time. Please follow me." Xie Yangyang's heart stirred slightly. He had long expected that she would come tonight. As she followed the deacon up the red sandalwood stairs leading to the top floor, the surrounding noise was gradually left behind. Pushing open the heavy carved wooden door of the top-floor pavilion, a very faint, cold fragrance washed over her. It was the top-grade agarwood Xie Yangyang was most familiar with, yet mixed with a trace of chilly snow-water scent. The interior of the room was decorated with utmost elegance. By the window stood a wide, soft couch where a young man dressed in an ink-black brocade robe woven with gold was reclining. He was exceptionally handsome, with eyebrows like distant mountains and a high-bridged nose. His narrow phoenix eyes, usually nonchalant, now carried a depth and sharpness that seemed to see right through one's mind as he looked up. Unlike Pei Xiaoheng's gentle and even slightly indecisive features, Pei Huijin's appearance possessed a strong sense of aggressiveness and oppression. In his hand, he was casually playing with a small jade trinket that was completely emerald green and exquisitely carved. Seeing Xie Yangyang walk in, Pei Huijin did not get up, but merely raised an eyebrow and casually set the object in his hand down on the table, making a crisp, light sound. Xie Yangyang took off the veiled hat on her head and handed it to Quiguo behind her, then gracefully walked over to the armchair opposite Pei Huijin and sat down in a poised and natural manner. "You sure are in high spirits." Second young master Pei Xiangyang was the first to speak, her voice clear, cold, and calm. Pei Huijin rested his chin on one hand, leisurely sizing her up. His gaze swept over her slightly red yet frighteningly calm eyes, then landed on her plain face that showed not a trace of panic. A faint glimmer of admiration and deep meaning flashing across the man's eyes. "For eldest Miss C to visit the residence late at night, surely you didn't come to drink tea and reminisce with a playboy younger brother like me." Pei Huijin's voice was deep and rich, the end of his tone slightly rising with a touch of casual teasing. "Counting the days, in another 10 days or half a month. I ought to change how I address you and call you sister-in-law." Sister-in-law. Xie Yangyang gave a self-deprecating chuckle, raising her bright eyes to look fearlessly straight into his ink-black pupils. "Pei Xiaoheng came to my place today. He told me to change the wedding date to 10 days from now." Xie Yangyang paused, saying word by word, 10 days from now, he wants to marry Song Ningyue as his main wife. Even for Pei Huijin, who never showed his emotions when he heard these words, his long, narrow phoenix eyes narrowed slightly, and a layer of chilling hostility instantly surged up deep within his eyes. But he quickly hid that flash of coldness, the corner of his mouth curving into an extremely mocking arc. "That good big brother of mine really is as stupid and greedy as ever." Xie Yangyang looked at him and didn't respond. "He wants you to step back for the sake of that pregnant concubine-born daughter of the Song family." Pei Huijin leaned forward slightly, his long fingers gently tapping on the table. "And you, Xie Yangyang, didn't even kill him with a sword, but instead came alone to my place in the dead of night." Pei Huijin's pitch-black eyes locked fixedly onto her, his voice low and full of temptation. "Miss Xi, what do you want to buy from me? My big brother's life or the life of that woman from the Song family? Their lives aren't worth anything." Xie Yangyang shook her head expressionlessly. Meeting Pei Huijin's oppressive gaze, her back was held straight, her voice crisp and forceful, echoing in the quiet private booth. 10 days from now, the original wedding date will remain unchanged, and the Pei family's bridal sedan chair will arrive as scheduled. It's just that I won't marry Pei Xiaoheng. Pei Huijin, 10 days from now, I'm marrying you." The air in the room seemed to completely freeze in this instant. Quiguo, standing behind Xie Yangyang, gasped in shock and covered her mouth. And Pei Huijin, sitting on the soft couch, abruptly stopped tapping his fingers on the table. On his handsome face, which was usually cynical and masterfully calculating, a fleeting look of shock appeared for the very first time, but right after, that shock turned into intense, thick interest and deep contemplation. He didn't smile, but merely stared deeply at the clear-headed, decisive, and even somewhat crazy woman in front of him with an extremely complex gaze. After a long silence, Pei Huijin slowly sat up straight. "Marry me?" Pei Huijin chuckled softly, a hint of emotion in his voice that others couldn't decipher. "Xie Yangyang, do you know what you are saying? I, Pei Huijin, have a notorious reputation in Linan. I'm a concubine-born son who was kicked out of the Pei family and has no proper occupation. What are you seeking by marrying me? I'm after your ruthlessness, your strength, and the fact that you aren't a hypocrite like Pei Xiaoheng." Xie Yangyang spoke coldly, every word crystal clear. "If my Xie family's jewelry and silk business in Jiangnan lacked the Pei family's trade routes, it would be swallowed up by the other major families in Linan, but if it remains in Pei Xiaoheng's hands, the Xie family will sooner or later be sucked dry and chewed up by them. You need the Xi family's century-old reputation and imperial merchant status on the surface in Jiangnan, while I need the power in your hands, as well as the strength to crush Pei Xiaoheng and Song Ningyue to death. Xie Yangyang leaned forward slightly, her gaze sharp as a knife. This is a deal where both sides benefit. Second young master Pei, do you dare to take it? Pei Huaijin looked at the burning ambition and pride in her eyes, and all the disguise in his own eyes completely faded away, replaced by an unhidden heat and intensity. He picked up the small jade trinket he was playing with just now from the low table, stood up and walked over step by step in front of Xie Yangyang with steady strides. His tall figure enveloped Xie Yangyang in shadow, bringing a strong sense of oppression. Pei Huaijin reached out and gently placed that item on the low table in front of Xie Yangyang. It was a cricket carved from top-grade imperial green jade, crafted with exquisite detail down to the finest hair on its antennae. So lifelike that even the patterns on the cricket's wings were clearly visible. Xie Yangyang's pupils contracted slightly. 8 years ago at the Linan Temple Fair, she had taken a liking to a grass cricket woven by a folk artisan. It was later crushed by a mischievous child, leaving her sad for several days. Even Pei Xiaoheng had long forgotten about this. I carved this jade cricket for 2 whole years. Pei Huaijin looked down at her, his voice low and raspy, carrying a deep affection that had been suppressed for far too long. Xie Yangyang, did you think this was just a business deal? Xie Yangyang's heart skipped a beat, and looking up she met his bottomless gaze. I've waited 3 years for this day. Pei Huaijin slowly leaned down to eye level with her, their breaths so close together. I've been waiting all along, waiting for you to see through Pei Xiaoheng's disgusting face, waiting for you to walk up to me of your own free will. Since you stepped through the doors of Hanghai Yueming today and reached out this hand, Pei Huaijin's gaze fell upon her slender, fair wrist, the corners of his lips curling into a domineering and wanton smirk. Xie Yangyang, don't even think about escaping me for the rest of your life. Xie Yangyang's heart pounded frantically at this moment. Looking at the unfathomable man in front of her, she realized for the first time that right from the start, she seemed to have fallen into a web far deeper and more meticulous than she had ever imagined. Is 10 days enough time for you to set your plan? Xie Yangyang steadied her mind and asked in a low voice. Exchanging marriage certificates, pulling off a sneaky switch, fainting out in the open while secretly operating in the dark, Pei Huaijin straightened up, his eyes regaining the composure and coldness of a ruler in total control. 10 days is more than enough for me to send them into an abyss of eternal ruin. 3 days later, at the most prestigious brocade tailor shop in Linan City Nishang Pavilion, the afternoon sunlight streamed through the carved latticed windows on the second floor onto a dazzling array of silks and satins, filling the entire loft with the scent of precious face powder and top-grade silk. Accompanied by Quiguo, Xie Yangyang stepped onto the second-floor corridor with a calm expression. Just as she turned the corner of the stairs, a soft, fragile voice with a hint of coy timidity drifted out from the private room ahead. Pei Lang, is this bright red wedding dress with gold-trimmed cloud brocade a bit too ostentatious? After all, I'm only born of a concubine. If sister from the Xie family finds out, how hurt would she feel? Then came Pei Xiaoheng's familiar and tender voice of comfort. Silly Ningyu, what are you overthinking? You are carrying my flesh and blood in your belly right now, and in 10 days you will be my lawfully wedded eldest young mistress of the Pei family. Naturally, only you deserve to wear the most expensive and finest wedding gown in Nishang Pavilion. As for Yang Yang, she is most sensible and generous by nature, and she agreed long ago to step aside for us. Don't overthink things and wrong yourself anymore. On the corridor, Quiguo turned pale with rage, her fists clenched until they cracked, longing to rush inside right away and tear apart that couple's ugly faces. Xie Yangyang, however, looked as calm as usual, not even raising an eyelid. She merely raised her hand lightly to stop Quiguo, then walked gracefully into the private room. If Miss Song is truly afraid that I'll feel bad, taking it off right now is still in time. The cool voice was like shattered jade falling onto a platter, instantly breaking the affectionate and sweet atmosphere inside the private room. The two inside the private room were startled violently. Pei Xiaoheng turned his head, seeing Xie Yangyang standing against the light at the threshold. His expression changed suddenly, flashing a hint of embarrassment and panic that was hard to conceal. Yang, why are you here? Song Ningyue, standing in front of the dressing bronze mirror, was even more like a frightened deer, quickly shrinking back behind Pei Xiaoheng. Xie Yangyang's gaze fell faintly upon Song Ningyue. That was indeed an exceptionally gorgeous beauty. Willow leaf eyebrows, almond eyes and a petite delicate figure. Right now she was wearing a bright red cloud brocade wedding dress embroidered with 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix, which made her already fair skin look even more touchingly lovely. Yet, deep inside those eyes that seemingly held glistening tears, a secret flash of smugness and provocation flickered across the instant they met Xie Yangyang. Xie Yangyang sneered in her heart. Frailty was her weapon, while ambition was her backbone. How could a helpless concubine's daughter of the Song family, who managed to scheme Pei Xiaoheng into being head over heels in just 6 months, and even risked offending the Shi family to get pregnant out of wedlock just to climb to the top, ever be a real fool? Young Master Pei's question is quite hilarious. Xie Yangyang said calmly, walking over to sit on a rosewood chair nearby. 10 days from now is the grand day of my Xie Manor holding a wedding. What's wrong with me coming to Nishang Pavilion to try on my wedding dress? Hearing her words, a wave of guilt and self-blame instantly welled up inside Pei Xiaoheng. As he looked at Xie Yangyang's elegant, unadorned yet still radiant face, tender moments between the two over the past 10 years involuntarily flashed through his mind. Xie Yangyang loved wearing plain colors, but Pei Xiaoheng had fantasized countless times about what she would look like wearing the phoenix coronet and red robe. That would definitely be a breathtaking beauty that could topple cities and stun the entire town. He had sworn in Xie Yangyang's ear more than once that on their wedding day he would definitely tailor the most gorgeous wedding dress in the whole world for her, and then tightly hide her inside the inner courtyard of the Pei family, not letting others catch even another glimpse of her. But now, the one wearing this luxurious wedding dress originally meant for Xie Yangyang was Song Ningyue instead. Yang, I'm sorry. Pei Xiaoheng took 2 steps forward and lowered his voice, his eyes filled with pain and pleading. Ningyue is weak and pregnant, so she can't handle being fatigued. I just wanted her to settle on the dress earlier. As for your wedding dress, I've already instructed the shopkeeper to make another one using the finest fabric. And I definitely won't let you be wronged. Young Master Pei doesn't need to explain all this to me. Xie Yangyang picked up the hot tea presented by her maid and gently blew away the foam, without even bothering to spare him a single glance. Everything between you and me was already made crystal clear long ago. You hold your wedding, and I organize my dowry. We have nothing to do with each other. Seeing that Pei Xiaoheng's gaze was glued to Xie Yangyang the entire time, a deep streak of jealousy and coldness flashed in the depths of Song Ningyue's eyes. She bit her lower lip, her eyes turning red in an instant. Supporting her belly that wasn't even showing yet, she stepped forward frail and delicate, making as if to kneel before Xie Yangyang. Sister Xie, no matter what went wrong, it's all Ningyue's fault. Ningyue was foolish for a moment and couldn't control her feelings. Ningyue knows her status is humble and that she stole sister's position as the primary wife. Ningyue deserves to die. I beg sister, please don't blame brother Pei. If sister is angry, Ningyue will take off this wedding dress right now. I only ask that sister doesn't grow distant from brother Pei. As she spoke, her body went limp and she collapsed toward the ground. Ningyue. Scared out of his wits, Pei Xiaoheng hurriedly pulled her tight into his arms and barked at the nearby maid with a face full of distress. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and support the concubine, support the young mistress. Pei Xiaoheng turned his head, looking at the cold-faced Xie Yangyang, unable to stop a hint of blame from creeping into his voice. Ningyue is pregnant, and her mind is sensitive and fragile. Why must you push her with such a cold and harsh attitude? She respects you as her elder sister and yields to you at every turn. Can't you show even a tiny bit of pity for her? Listening to these words that twisted black into white, Xie Yangyang felt no anger in her heart. Instead, she found it utterly absurd and laughable. Stealing someone else's marriage, getting pregnant with someone else's fiancé's child, running in front of the rightful owner to put on a show of seeking death. and instead turning into the victim who conceded at every turn. And she the one who was betrayed and trampled on, just because she didn't play along with their act of sisterly devotion, became the cold and heartless villain. Just as Pei Xiaoheng was holding the weeping Song Ningyue, attempting to stand on the moral high ground to continue accusing Xie Yangyang, a sound of crisp, steady footsteps suddenly came from outside the private room. Accompanying the footsteps was a bone-chilling sneer. "I was wondering who was shouting and yelling in Nishang Pavilion. Turns out it's my good older brother who cheated on the side and still forces others to praise you for being deeply affectionate and generous." Everyone inside the private room jerked in shock and turned their heads in unison to look. They saw the curtain of the private room lifted by a slender hand, and Pei Huaijin, wearing a dark blue satin robe with subtle patterns and a jade belt tied at his waist, stepped in with an arrogant and cold expression. Behind him, the head manager of Nishang Pavilion was personally holding a mahogany tray lined with gold thread soft satin, following behind respectfully. "Huaijin." Pei Xiaoheng's face changed drastically as he subconsciously released his hold on Song Ningyue. Looking in shock and fury at this younger brother who had always been at odds with him, "Why are you here?" Pei Huaijin didn't even glance at Pei Xiaoheng. His narrow phoenix eyes fell straight onto Xie Yangyang, who was sitting calmly, and the ice deep within his eyes melted instantly, turning into a barely noticeable trace of doting fondness and tenderness. "If I hadn't come, wouldn't some shameless nobodies be stepping all over the Pei family's honored guest and lording it over them?" Pei Huaijin spoke nonchalantly. His voice wasn't loud, but every word was like a knife, scraping harshly across the faces of Pei Xiaoheng and Song Ningyue. Song Ningyue's face turned deathly pale in an instant. "How dare you!" Embarrassed and enraged, Pei Xiaoheng barked harshly. "Pei Huaijin, I am your elder brother. The baby in Ningyue's belly is your biological nephew. It's bad enough that you spend all day hanging around brothels and ruining the family reputation, but now you actually dare to run over here, talk insolently, and humiliate your sister-in-law." Sister-in-law. Pei Huaijin acted as if he had heard the biggest joke in the world, casting a contemptuous glance at Song Ningyue, a concubine's daughter from the Song family who got pregnant out of wedlock and forced her way up by climbing into bed. "Is she worthy of being my Pei Huaijin's sister-in-law?" "Pei Xiaoheng, your brain is blinded by pig fat. Don't take everyone in the Pei family for a fool like you." You trembling with rage all over, Pei Xiaoheng pointed at Pei Huaijin, unable to speak for a long time. Pei Huaijin didn't pay any attention to him at all anymore, turning instead to look at the head shopkeeper behind him, slightly raising his chin. "Take it out and show it to Miss Xi." "Yes, second master." The head shopkeeper carefully lifted the red silk on the mahogany tray. In an instant, the entire private room seemed to be shrouded in a dazzling and brilliant glow. It was a wedding dress so beautiful it took one's breath away, crafted entirely from woven gold Kessi shoe brocade that couldn't be bought even for tens of thousands of gold pieces. Its base color was an imperial hue of crimson laced with luxurious dark gold. Embroidered densely across the entire dress with tens of thousands of rice grain-sized South Sea pearls and pure gold threads was a pattern of a mysterious bird of the nine heavens spreading its wings to fly. Under the afternoon sunlight, the gold threads and South Sea pearls sparkled brilliantly, as if an entire radiant sunset had been woven into the skirt. Compared to this Kessi wedding dress, the Yunjin wedding outfit on Song Ningyue, that she took so much pride in, instantly seemed as coarse and cheap as dirt on the ground. This is Song Ningyue stared fixedly at that wedding dress, her eyes so full of jealousy and hatred that they nearly bled, her nails digging deep into her flesh. Pei Xiaoheng was also completely dazed by the sight. Such an exquisitely crafted Kessi wedding dress. The South Sea pearls and gold threads on it alone are priceless. Impossible to make without top Jiangnan embroideresses devoting years of effort, and definitely not something ordinary silver can buy. Pei Huaijin walked up to Xie Yangyang and leaned down slightly. His narrow phoenix eyes reflected Xie Yangyang's stunning face, his voice low and focused. "First, Miss Xi, this wedding dress was painstakingly crafted over 900+ days and nights by 6 master embroideresses specially hired from the capital city weaving office 3 years ago. Only such stunning beauty is worthy of the finest girl in Linan City." Xie Yangyang raised her head, meeting his passionate and affectionate gaze. Amidst the shock and dead silence filling the room, Xie Yangyang extended her slender jade-like fingers, gently running them over the cool, luxurious Kisi skirt hem, the corners of her lips curving slightly into a breathtaking smile. Very good. I like it very much. On the night she returned from Nishang Pavilion, the candles in the study of Xie Manor burned all through the night. Dressed in a plain white side-fastening robe with subtle patterns, Xie Yangyang sat upright behind a mahogany desk, holding an ivory abacus between her long, fair fingers, the beads clacking in the silent night so fast they were almost a blur. Miss, these are all the master ledgers of transactions between the Xie family and the Pei family trading house over the past 3 years, Uncle Qi. The old accountant of Xie Manor bowed low and presented a thick stack of account books, his grizzled beard trembling slightly. This old servant just did a rough tally. Just the goods eldest young master Pei took from our Shi family's major silver shops and silk stores under the pretext of take goods first, settle payment later amount to a full 340,000 taels of silver. Among them are 2 batches of top-grade South Sea pearls and top-grade jadeite, which were the heirloom assets the old master left to you back then, all transferred to the Pei family main repository by Pei Xiaoheng under the excuse of clearing official channels in Nanyang. Xie Yangyang flipped through the account books, her expression cold as frost. As her fingertips traced those shocking numbers one by one, the blind foolishness of the past 10 years turned into a cold, sharp edge at this moment. Uncle Qi, pass my word down. Xie Yangyang closed the ledger, her voice so calm that not a single ripple could be heard, yet carrying an unquestionable decisiveness. Starting from the Chen hour tomorrow, all top-grade jewelry, shoe brocade, and raw silk from the Xie family's branches in Linan and the 13 regions of Jiangnan will immediately cease supply to the Pei family trading house. For all previously credited goods, have the accountants draw up demands to collect the debts one by one. Not a single penny is to be missed. A flash of shock passed through Uncle Qi's eyes, immediately replaced by relief, and he responded heavily, yes, this old servant will go handle it right away. It's just if the Pei family uses the marriage contract as an excuse to spread rumors everywhere that the Xie family burns bridges, they won't get that chance. The corners of Xie Yangyang's lips curled into a sneering chill. Their good days, only these last 7 days remain. At the same time, inside a hidden water pavilion at Hanghai Yuming in the west of the city, a larger and more ruthless game of chess was silently drawing its net. The night was deep, and inside the water pavilion only a pea-sized oil lamp was lit. Pei Huijin leaned back in an armchair, holding a gold-embossed marriage certificate between his slender fingers. In the dim light, chilling hostility and calculation surged in those narrow phoenix eyes. Second Master, everything has been taken care of. Yanqing, head of the personal shadow guards, dropped silently into the pavilion, knelt on one knee and presented a vermilion document with both hands. The Song family's status was already in decline, and Old Master Song was anxious to cling to the big tree of the Pei family. Previously, when Pei Xiaoheng traveled for business, his private meetings with Song Ningyue were all in secret. The elders of the Song residence actually only met Pei Xiaoheng twice 6 months ago from start to finish, and couldn't distinguish the subtle differences in facial features between the eldest master and second master of the Pei family at all. Pei Huijin's slender fingers flicked lightly, opening that document. Following your orders. Your subordinate used the pretext of a direct line young master of the Pei residence scouting out the family on behalf of his elder brother and brought a heavy sum of gold to the Song residence for the betrothal proposal. Seeing the generous betrothal gifts, Old Master Song was overjoyed and, without even inspecting it closely, stamped the great seal of the Song clan onto the marriage certificate. In other words, in the Song family's clan documents and the registry of the 3 letters and 6 rights, the person whose 8 characters match Song Ningyue and who was about to marry Song Ningyue with full traditional honors was written clearly in black and white, the eldest son. The primary branch of the Pei clan, Pei Xiaoheng. As for the scapegoat marriage certificate with the name Pei Huijin written on it, which Pei Xiaoheng had secretly slipped to Song Ningyue in an attempt to pull off a grand deception, it had long been swapped in Pei Huijin's hands with Pei Xiaoheng's own birth characters, Did Chuntao, that dowry maid beside Song Ningyue, accept? Pei Huijin said indifferently, tossing that marriage certificate into the charcoal brazier to the side. Tongues of flame instantly licked up, engulfing the paper entirely. Reporting to second master, she accepted it. Yan Qing's eyes flashed with a hint of contempt. Chuntao is Song Ningyue's personal head maid. But Song Ningyue usually acts all high and mighty, constantly beating and scolding her servants. Chuntao's younger brother was held at the black market over gambling debts. So this subordinate paid off his debts for her and promised her 200 taels of silver and emancipation papers once it's done. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Chuntao has already handed over all the letters regarding Song Ningyue's affair and her scheme targeting eldest young Master Pei under the pretext of falling into the water, along with the dregs and partial prescription of the abortion medicine, straight into this subordinate's hands. A dead silence fell inside the water pavilion. After a long while, Pei Huijin let out a low laugh. That laughter echoed through the dim water pavilion, bone-chillingly cold. Pei Shaoheng thought he had calculated everything. That he could step on Yang Yang's flesh and blood to enjoy having both women. Little does he know, the coffin he dug for himself has long had its lid nailed down by his own hands. 10 days' time flew by rapidly amid the surging undercurrents from all sides. During these 10 days, Lin'an City seemed to be split into two completely different worlds. Pei Shaoheng was immersed in the self-satisfaction of soon marrying his lovely wife and protecting his own flesh and blood. Every day, he accompanied Song Ningyue through all the major jewelry shops in Lin'an City, throwing money around like water to buy all sorts of lavish outfits and accessories for Song Ningyu, turning a blind eye to everything regarding the Xie family or even Xie Yangyang, and subconsciously even deliberately avoiding the Xie manor, terrified of seeing Xie Yangyang's frost-cold eyes. Meanwhile, accompanied by Quiguo, Xie Yangyang methodically and secretly transferred all of the Xie family's core assets into the shadow merchant network under the name of Hanghai Yuming. Late at night on the 9th day, inside the boudoir of the Xie manor, red candles flickered. Tomorrow would be the grand wedding day known across the entire city. Quiguo combed Xie Yangyang's hair that flowed like a waterfall. Looking at her young lady's extraordinarily beautiful yet proud face in the bronze mirror, she couldn't help whispering, "Miss." Today, Pei Shaoheng had someone send over another box of ordinary Eastern pearls, saying it was to add to your trousseau and apologize. I didn't even let his people in the door and threw it right out. Xie Yangyang looked at herself in the bronze mirror with an indifferent expression, a cold sneer forming at the corners of her lips, just the useless struggles of a dying man. "Miss, have you really thought it through?" Quiguo paused, the wooden comb in her hand, her eyes full of concern and anxiety. Second young master certainly has extraordinary means, but after all, he's far too calculating. I'm worried you'll just be jumping out of the wolf's den and into the tiger's lair. Xie Yangyang raised her hand and gently stroked the translucent emerald-green jade cricket on the desk. That was something Pei Huijin had spent 2 years of effort carving stroke by stroke with his blade. Quiguo, people in this world fall into many types, Xie Yangyang spoke softly, her eyes looking unusually bright and resolute in the candlelight. There's one type of person who is full of righteousness and grand vows, yet can stab you right in the heart and then blame you for not being generous enough, while another type of person full of hostility and calculating against the whole world is willing to reserve all his restraint, patience, and concessions for you alone. Xie Yangyang stood up, walked to the window, and pushed open the window sash. To the west of the city, the 5-story building of Hanghai Yuming stood tall in the night, its top floor brightly lit through the night, facing Xi Manor from afar. Pei Shaoheng thought he was throwing away a blade of grass, but Pei Huijin treats me as a priceless treasure. Xie Yangyang took a deep breath of the slightly cool air in the night breeze, her eyes turning completely cold. Tomorrow it's time for this big show to begin. On this auspicious day, the sky was clear and bright. Bright red festive silks stretched all the way from the head of the street to the end of the alley in Lin'an City, and the deafening music of gongs and drums made the entire Zhuke Avenue boil with excitement. Lin'an City hadn't seen such a sensational wedding in many years. The Pei family's bridal procession was grand and majestic, with 2 bright red, 8 treasure-tasseled sedan chairs carried by 16 people each actually setting off from opposite ends of Long Street at the same time, converging together right toward the main gate of the Pei residence. The commoners watching along the street and guests from various prominent families jammed the street completely, and whispers spread among them like a surging tide. "Look, the Pei family really pulled out all the stops today. I heard the eldest young master is marrying Miss Song, and the second young master is marrying the eldest miss of the Shi family, holding both weddings on the exact same day." "What? The eldest miss of the Si family is marrying the second young master, Pei Huaijin? A few days ago, wasn't it rumored that Miss Shi had a long-standing marriage contract with the eldest young master? Who knows? There are so many twists and turns in wealthy prominent families, but I heard Miss Song is already pregnant, which is why the eldest young master was in such a rush to bring her through the door." Amidst the chatter filling the entire city, the 2 bridal sedan chairs slowly set down in front of the main gate of the Pei residence. The front of the Pei residence was already filled with guests, and Father Pei and Mother Pei sat upright on the high seats in the main hall, their faces beaming with joy. Dressed in a bright red wedding robe embroidered with gold thread, wearing a large red silk flower on his chest, and riding a tall, fine horse, Pei Xiaoheng dismounted with a glowing smile. With a hint of relieved ecstasy in his eyes, he walked briskly toward the sedan chair on the left that belonged to Song Ningyue. In his view, everything today was a done deal. Song Ningyue was entering the door as the primary wife, and the child was saved, while sitting in the sedan chair on the right was Xie Yangyang, who was marrying in her brother's place. Although she was wrong today by marrying Pei Huaijin as a cover, as long as today passed, the business between the Pei family and the Xie family would remain rock solid, and in the future he would have plenty of chances to take Xie Yangyang back into his room. "Lift the sedan curtain, welcome the bride." The master of ceremonies' high-pitched voice sliced through the din. Overjoyed, Pei Xiaoheng kicked the sedan door open and personally reached out to help Song Ningyue, dressed in a cloud brocade wedding gown and covered by a red veil, out of the sedan. Under the veil, the corners of Song Ningyue's mouth curled up wildly and she trembled all over with excitement. She had finally done it. A lowly concubine-born daughter like her had finally stepped on the legitimate daughter of the Xie family, the wealthiest in Linan, to sit in the position of the primary wife as the Pei family's eldest young mistress. However, before the smile on Pei Xiaoheng's face could fully bloom, the scene unfolding in front of the bridal sedan on the right suddenly plunged the entire crowd into a dead silence. In front of the bridal sedan on the right, a tall, straight, and extraordinarily domineering figure in dark red strode forward. Pei Huaijin was dressed in an emperor-embroidered python robe interwoven with dark red, a coiled dragon jade belt tied around his waist, a cold sneer looking down on the world hanging on his godlike handsome face. Without even waiting for the wedding attendant to step forward, he personally pulled open the sedan curtain and then, with extreme dominance and utmost care, reached out his large palm to grasp that fair, soft jade hand inside the sedan. The next moment, a gorgeous figure clad in gold-woven tapestry silk with the dark bird of the 9 heavens spreading its wings to fly slowly stepped out of the bridal sedan. At the moment she stepped out of the bridal sedan, Xie Yangyang raised her slender jade hand and right in front of thousands of guests from all over the city, pulled off the red bridal veil over her head in one sweep. Boom! In front of the main gate of the entire Pei residence, the crowd instantly blew up. Under the sunlight, Xie Yangyang wore the phoenix coronet and red robe, her breathtaking face needing no heavy makeup yet stunningly gorgeous. The tapestry silk wedding dress on her body shimmered with light under the sun, and tens of thousands of South Sea pearls reflected a dazzling glare, making Song Ningyue's originally gorgeous cloud brocade wedding dress beside her look as shabby as coarse burlap. Yang, Pei Xiaoheng was struck as if by lightning, the smile on his face instantly cracking to pieces. He widened his eyes, staring fixedly at Xie Yangyang's face that showed no sadness at all, but instead carried endless coldness and mockery, his mind roaring loudly. "You, how could you lift your veil? Why are you dressed like this?" Pei Xiaoheng pointed at Xie Yangyang, his voice screeching out of pitch. Meeting his gaze, Xie Yangyang's lips curled into an extremely sarcastic sneer. Without even giving him a glance, she turned to the side allowing Pei Huijin beside her to tightly wrap her icy cold hand into his warm palm. Pei Huijin wrapped his arm around Xie Yangyang's slender waist, his narrow phoenix eyes filled with icy murderous intent as he looked down condescendingly at Pei Xiaoheng. Pei Xiaoheng, why can't my lawfully wedded wife lift her veil to show her face? As for you dragging a shameless concubine to block the main entrance of the Pei residence, haven't you made enough of a fool of yourself? What did you say? Concubine? Song Ning Yue, who was standing beside Pei Xiaoheng, abruptly pulled off her red veil and screamed out, her face pale with shock and fury, Pei Huijin, you're spouting slander. Xiaoheng and I were lawfully wedded with the 3 letters and 6 rights. I am the Pei family's lawfully wedded first young mistress. Lawfully wedded? Pei Huijin sneered abruptly, flicking his sleeve. Behind him, Yanqing stepped forward, abruptly pulling out 2 vermilion marriage certificates stamped with seals from the government office and both families from his robe. Gathering his internal force, he slammed the marriage certificates hard onto the table, right in the center of the main hall of the Pei residence. Open your dog eyes and look closely. Yanqing's voice boomed like a giant bell across the entire front courtyard. The marriage certificate registered with the government office and checked through the 3 letters, and 6 rights is here. The second son of the Pei family's main branch, Pei Huijin, marries the legitimate daughter of the Shi family, Shi Yangyang, as his main wife, a union of 2 surnames. With heaven and earth as witness. And the concubine-born daughter of the Song family, Song Ning Yue, the person written on her betrothal marriage certificate is the eldest son of the Pei family's main branch. Pei Xiaoheng. Boom. This second bolt of thunder scared Pei Xiaoheng out of his wits on the spot. Father Pei and Mother Pei sitting in the main hall trembled all over in shock. Father Pei scrambled down in a hurry to snatch the marriage certificate on the table. When he clearly saw that Song Ning Yue's marriage certificate was glaringly stamped with Pei Xiaoheng's own personal seal and written with Pei Xiaoheng's 8 characters of birth, his vision turned black and he nearly fainted. Xiaoheng, what is going on here? Didn't you say you were marrying Shi Yangyang? How did it become Song Ning Wei? Mother Pei rushed over screaming, her hair bun disheveled, just like a madwoman. Pei Xiaoheng trembled violently all over, staring fixedly at that marriage certificate, his mind going completely blank. Impossible. It's impossible. Pei Xiaoheng lunged forward like crazy, trying to snatch it. I clearly had them write Huijin's name. How could it be my name? Who swapped the marriage certificate? Who was it? You swapped it yourself. A voice as cold and sharp as a blade suddenly rang out. Xie Yangyang stood beside Pei Huijin, looking coldly at the frantic Pei Xiaoheng, without a trace of warmth in her eyes. Pei Xiaoheng, you thought you were so clever. Trying to use a fake marriage certificate to pull the wool over everyone's eyes, stuffing Song Ning Yue under my husband's name as an equal wife, and then stepping on the reputation of my Xie family to fulfill your affair. Do you really think everyone in the world is a fool to be manipulated by you? Hearing this, Song Ning Yue felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave. She subconsciously grabbed Pei Xiaoheng's arm and cried out, Xiaoheng! Xiaoheng, save me. No matter what the marriage certificate says, I'm your primary wife. I'm carrying your flesh and blood in my belly. Primary wife? Are you even worthy? Just then, in the bridal procession behind Song Ning Yue, the senior maid Chun Tao suddenly dropped to her knees with a thud right in front of Father Pei, Mother Pei, and the room full of guests. Master, Madam, honored guests, please judge for yourselves. Chun Tao sobbed bitterly, suddenly pulling a large stack of letters and medicine packets from her bosom and slamming them hard onto the ground. This servant wants to expose Song Ning Yue. Being bullied in the tea house half a year ago was all directed and acted out by her. After the caravan was attacked, she drugged the first young master with an aphrodisiac and forced him to sleep with her. Even the inside story behind the first young master getting severely injured in the caravan attack was because Song Ning Yue secretly leaked the caravan route to the bandits. The child in her belly is nothing but a vicious scheme she calculated by hook or by crook just to climb her way up. The entire hall broke into an uproar. The pointing fingers, contempt, and verbal abuse of over 1,000 guests instantly engulfed Pei Xiaoheng and Song Ning Yue like a violent storm. Vicious woman! You vicious woman! Hearing this, Mother Pei was so enraged she couldn't catch her breath. Her eyes rolled back and she passed out cold straight away, plunging the Pei residence into utter chaos. And Pei Xiaoheng, standing at the center of the storm, looked at the evidence scattered all over the floor, looked at Song Ningyue beside him, whose true colors were exposed and whose face was hideous, and then looked at Pei Huaijin and Xie Yangyang standing shoulder to shoulder opposite him like a match made in heaven. The childhood sweethearts of the past 10 years. 10 years of tender vows, the full support of the Xie family, and his old injury from when the caravan was attacked, which he had forcibly suppressed and still had not healed to this day. All the regret, humiliation, anger, and blood madly surged back into his heart at this very instant. Pei Xiaoheng threw his head back abruptly, and a large mouthful of glaring scarlet blood spurted from his mouth, staining the big red flower on his chest red. His tall body swayed violently, his knees gave way, and he crashed heavily onto the cold bluestone ground, passing out cold. Xiaoheng! That Xiaoheng! Song Ningyue screamed frantically as she went to support him, only to be slapped viciously to the ground by Father Pei. You jinx! Get out of my Pei family! In front of the gates of the Pei residence, everything devolved into complete chaos. Yet Pei Huaijin didn't even spare half a glance from the corner of his eye at the mess on the ground. Amidst the overwhelming noise and chaos, he slowly turned around, scooping up Xie Yangyang, who was dressed in fine tapestry silk robes, into his arms. Wife Pei Huaijin lowered his eyes to gaze at her, his eyes brimming with endless tenderness and obsession. Now that this show is over, your husband will take you home. Under the shocked gazes of the guests from all over the city, Pei Huaijin held his bride and stepped onto the 16-bearer gold-topped sedan chair exclusive to Shanghai Yuming, riding off into the distance. The clamor and curses on Long Street were completely shut out in the dusk as the gold-topped sedan chair faded into the distance. The grand spectacle in front of the main gate of the Pei residence came to an utterly embarrassing end. Pei Xiaoheng's old injury relapsed, causing him to spit blood and pass out, so the servants scrambled to carry him back to the inner courtyard. Mother Pei was unconscious, and Father Pei, overwhelmed by anger and fury, wouldn't let Song Ningyue step half a foot into the main hall. The Song family's bridal sedan chair was detained right at the side gate while the matchmaker and guests scattered like frightened animals. In the end, only because Father Pei feared a death might stain the family crest, he threw out a big red rooster, forcing Song Ningyue to bow to heaven and earth in a side courtyard room facing a crowing, flapping beast. The dignity of the top prominent family in Lin'an City was torn apart on this day, leaving not even a fig leaf behind. Meanwhile, inside the Shanghai Yuming villa in the west of the city, it was a completely different world. The entire villa didn't carry even a hint of the vulgar rouge and powder scent of the main building's gold melting den. Instead, it was quiet and extremely elegant. Over 100 glass corner lanterns were lit on both sides of the bluestone paved pathway, their soft glow casting a dreamlike light on the rockery flowing water, and newly transplanted double-flowered begonias in the courtyard. All the way there, Pei Huaijin's large palms remained steadily supporting the backs of Xie Yangyang's knees and waist, his steps steady and powerful, never letting her feel even the slightest bump. Only after crossing the threshold of the main room did Pei Huaijin carefully place Xie Yangyang onto the alcove bed spread with a bright red gold-threaded dragon and phoenix brocade quilt. The furnishings inside the room were extremely exquisite. On the yellow rosewood vanity table sat a complete and neat set of eyebrow powder and jade hairpins, and by the window, there was even a large red sandalwood abacus that Xie Yangyang was most accustomed to using. Xie Yangyang's gaze flickered slightly. Every decoration and every object here actually matched her preferences and habits completely. This wasn't something that could be set up in a hurry. At least several months ago, Pei Huaijin was already making preparations to welcome her into the manor. Pei Huaijin straightened up, casually unfastened his outer robe and threw it onto the screen to the side. His slender fingers picked up the white jade nuptial wine pot on the table and filled 2 jade cups with intertwined golden lotus patterns. What are you thinking about? Pei Huaijin walked back to the edge of the bed holding the wine cups, lifted his robe and sat down beside her. The candlelight and her breathtaking face reflected in his narrow phoenix eyes. Thinking about when exactly you started scheming against me. Xie Yangyang raised her eyes and looked straight into his deep black eyes. Her voice cool with a hint of complexity. Pei Huaijin, those 2 marriage certificates, as well as the maid beside Song Ningyue, you had already set up the trap long ago. Even if I hadn't come to Hanghai Yuming to find you 10 days ago, you would still have a way to make me marry you, wouldn't you? Pei Huaijin chuckled softly, handing one of the nuptial wine cups into her hand, his fingertips inadvertently brushing across the back of her slightly cool hand. That's not right. Pei Huaijin looked at her, his gaze turning extremely serious and focused. If you hadn't come looking for me, if you had insisted on staying by eldest brother's side to clean up his mess, I would have just slammed the evidence right in his face, forced him to set you free, and then given your Xie family a free and boundless world. Xi Yangyang's fingertips holding the jade cup trembled slightly. I, Pei Huaijin, scheme against heaven and earth, but I just can't bring myself to scheme against your heart, Xi Yangyang. Pei Huaijin raised his arm slightly, lightly intertwining his wrist with hers in the air, forming an arc that symbolized joining hearts in marriage. I have waited 3 years, just to hear you say to me with your own lips, I will marry you. Meeting his burning gaze, the long frozen ice deep within Xi Yangyang's chest seemed to quietly crack open a fissure at this moment. She did not shrink away, raised her arm, locked wrists with him, and drank the spicy yet sweet nuptial wine in her cup down in one gulp. As the liquor went down her throat, a wave of burning warmth welled up. However, before Pei Huaijin could take the empty cup from her hand, outside the tightly closed red lacquered gate of the courtyard, there suddenly came violent banging on the door and hysterical shouting. Yang Yang, come out. You can't marry him. Pei Huaijin, you despicable bastard. Give Yang back to me. Get the hell out here. That was Pei Xiaoheng's voice. He had actually just woken up from a coma, without even changing out of his wedding robes, and rushed like a madman, dragging his sick body all the way to the front gates of Shanghai Yuming Villa. The warmth and intimacy inside the room were instantly shattered. Yanqing's figure silently appeared outside the screen, reporting in a low voice, Master, the eldest young master is forcing his way in outside with a few attendants. He's lost control of his emotions and keeps spewing nonsense, which has already drawn a crowd of neighbors watching. Pei Huaijin's eyes suddenly turned cold and his aura instantly became sharp and deadly as a blade. Just as he was about to get up, a plain white, cold hand gently pressed down on his arm. Pei Huaijin paused and turned to look at Xie Yangyang. Xie Yangyang stood up expressionlessly, reaching up to tidy her Kessie silk gown, her phoenix eyes filled with sharp resolve. Husband, since an old acquaintance has come to our door seeking death, let me send him off on his final journey. That single word husband made the hostility around Pei Huaijin vanish into thin air, replaced by an intensely deep smile and indulgence in his eyes. All right, your husband will back you up. The main gates of the villa slammed wide open. The night wind swept up fallen leaves across the ground. Outside the door, Pei Xiaoheng's face was as pale as paper, with uncleaned bloodstains even remaining on the corner of his lips. He held onto the doorframe totteringly, and when he saw Xie Yangyang, dressed in a phoenix coronet and red robe, looking gorgeously cold, stepping over the threshold, desperate hope instantly burst from the bottom of Pei Xiaoheng's eyes. Yang, I knew you were still here. Pei Xiaoheng rushed forward, wanting to grab her hand. All of this is Pei Huaijin's conspiracy, right? He swapped the marriage certificate. He bribed Song Ningyue's maid. Yang, I was framed. The person I love has always been you. Come back with me, we'll do the wedding bows again. Slap. A crisp, ear-piercing slap fiercely shattered all of Pei Xiaoheng's madness. Pei Xiaoheng's face was knocked sideways by the strike, blood oozed from the corner of his mouth again, and he froze completely on the spot. Xie Yangyang pulled back her hand, unhurriedly wiping her fingertips with a snow-white silk handkerchief, her eyes cold as if looking at a pile of rotting mud. Pei Xiaoheng, this slap is for the Xie Yangyang of 10 years ago, who pinched pennies for you, prayed for you, and sought medicine for you. You keep claiming that others framed you, but the one who had an illicit affair with Song Ningyue was you. The one who got pregnant with a bastard was you. The one who took 340,000 taels of silver from the Shi family to squander outside was you, and the one who forced me to step down and yield my position. Humbling myself was also you. Xie Yangyang slammed the silk handkerchief in her hand right onto Pei Xiaoheng's face, every word piercing to the heart. I, Xi Yangyang, was blind for 10 years, mistaking an ungrateful wolf for a good husband. Whether exchanging marriage certificates today or exposing you, it's all your own doing. From the moment you stepped into Song Ningyu's room, between you and me, there is only deep hatred left. Young Pei Xiaoheng's knees went weak, and he fell to his knees in the mud, weeping bitterly. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. If you stop the Xia family's supplies, the Pei family will die. You can't be so heartless. As it turned out, he had chased her all the way here. Besides that laughable bit of resentment, what he ultimately sought was still the Xia family's money and businesses. The last trace of contempt in Xia Yangyang's eyes dissolved into nothingness. She didn't even bother to say another word to him, turning around to walk straight back inside. Just as Pei Xiaoheng attempted to scramble after her on all fours, a tall and upright figure blocked the doorway. Pei Huaijin looked down from above at his older brother on the ground, with no anger in his eyes, only an indifference like crushing an ant. He slowly leaned down, got close to Pei Xiaoheng's ear, and said a sentence in an extremely soft and cold voice that only the two of them could hear. Eldest brother, the bandits who ambushed you at the Huai River 3 years ago. Song Ningyue only gave half of your whereabouts. Pei Xiaoheng's pupils dilated sharply as he looked at his younger brother in front of him in utter terror. The remaining half who forced you into a dead end were sent by me. Pei Huaijin's lips curled into a cruel arc. I gave you a chance to live, but you just had to choose the path that deserved death the most. You. Pei Xiaoheng trembled violently all over, a wheezing gasp coming from his throat. Looking as if he had seen a demon from hell, he was scared, deathly pale, scrambling backwards on all fours. In the end, he couldn't even stand up and was hurriedly carried away, dragged along by his attendants. The gates of the side courtyard slammed shut heavily once again. Pei Huaijin turned around and strode back to the bedroom. Xie Yangyang was sitting in front of her vanity, raising her hand to take off the heavy phoenix crown on her head. A pair of warm, powerful hands gently rested on the back of her hand. Then Pei Huaijin naturally took the gold hairpin from her hand, his slender fingers weaving through her ink-black hair, taking off the intricate gold hairpins and step-shake ornaments one by one with extremely gentle movements. 3,000 strands of black hair cascaded down like a waterfall, covering Xie Yangyang's delicate, fragrant shoulders. In the bronze mirror, Pei Huaijin wrapped his arms around her from behind, gently resting his chin against the top of her head, his breath warm and deep. Madam, all the idle people outside have been cleared out. Xie Yangyang's body stiffened slightly, and then she met his burning and domineering gaze in the bronze mirror. Pei Huaijin leaned down, his thin lips gently pressing against her fair, delicate neck, tenderly yet aggressively lingering and sucking. The bright red wedding candle crackled, popping a spark. Pei Huaijin picked her up in his arms and walked slowly toward the fire-crimson wedding bed. Layers of silk curtains fell, obscuring the room full of spring passion and a lifetime of infatuation. Early the next morning, the morning light was faint. A gentle breeze fluttered the bright red double happiness characters on the carved window frames, and the main room of the side courtyard was filled with the subtle, interwoven scent of ambergris and premium agarwood. Xi Yangyang's eyelashes trembled lightly, and she slowly opened her eyes. The soreness spreading through her entire body made her frown slightly, and as soon as she moved, she realized a strong, powerful arm was resting across her waist, tightly trapping her against a warm chest. Pei Huaijin had long been awake. He propped his head on one side, his jet-black hair draped loosely over his shoulders. The morning light fell on his incomparably handsome profile, and his long, narrow phoenix eyes held unhidden tenderness and satisfaction as he quietly gazed at the woman in his arms. Seeing her wake up, Pei Huaijin's thin lips curled slightly, and he lowered his head to press a light kiss on her smooth forehead. Awake. Xie Yangyang's ears turned slightly red under his burning gaze. Subconsciously, she tried to pull up the brocade quilt to cover the mottled red marks on her chest, but the man grabbed her wrist. Why cover up? They're all marks left by your husband. Pei Huaijin let out a low chuckle, his chest vibrating slightly. It's getting late. Xi Yangyang composed herself, regaining her usual calm. According to the rules, we should go to the main courtyard of the Pei residence to serve tea today. Whether to go or not depends entirely on Madam's mood. Pei Huijin sat up, draping a soft bright red brocade nightgown over her shoulders. If you don't want to look at those filthy faces, just stay in the courtyard and rest today. I'd like to see who in the Pei family dares to say a single word. Of course we're going. Si Yangyang's eyes turned slightly cold as she let him tie her sash for her. The sooner some accounts are settled, the sooner we get peace and quiet. Half an hour later, in front of the vanity table, Xie Yangyang changed into a dignified and elegant bright red cloud silk gold thread woven brocade gown, her cascading long hair pinned up into a married woman's bun. Adorned with a set of pure gold hair ornaments inlaid with top-grade imperial green jade that Pei Huijin had given her. Pei Huijin stood behind her, holding a fine piece of black eyebrow pigment between his slender jade-like fingers. Leaning down slightly, he focused intently on drawing her distant mountain eyebrows. His movements were unhurried, and his expression was as focused as if he were sculpting the most precious piece of art in the world. All done. Pei Huijin set down the eyebrow pigment and looked with satisfaction at the breathtaking beauty in the bronze mirror. In the mirror, Xi Yangyang's eyebrows were like distant mountains and her eyes like autumn waters. Even though her collar was pulled up very high, a faint red mark left from last night still peeked through the edge of her fair, slender neck, adding a breathtaking touch of charm to her usually cold and distant demeanor. Main hall of the Pei residence's main courtyard. At this moment, the atmosphere in the main hall was so oppressive it felt as if water could be wrung out of it. Father Pei sat in the main seat. Looking more than 10 years older with deeply sunken eye sockets, Mother Pei had a forehead wrap tied around her head and slumped pale-faced in a soft chair, her eyes filled with malice and panic. At the lower seat, Pei Xiaoheng sat in a wheelchair dressed in plain clothes, gaunt to the bone, his eyes as hollow as a walking corpse. Behind him, Song Ningyue wore a shabby pink concubine's dress, her eyes swollen like walnuts, kneeling obediently on the cold floor with her head bowed, without even a cushion. Second master and second young mistress have arrived. With the servant's loud announcement outside the door, two dazzling figures stepped side by side into the main hall. Si Yangyang was dressed in bright red, with grace in every step, exuding the elegant demeanor of a noble matriarch all over. Beside her, Pei Huijin wore a black robe and a jade belt, his expression cold and proud, his large hand holding Xie Yangyang's waist domineeringly the entire time. Like an unshakable guardian god. When Pei Xiaoheng clearly saw the faint red mark on the edge of Xie Yangyang's neck, his pupils shrank violently, and his heart felt as though it were being viciously shredded by a rusty iron sword. That was the woman he had once dreamed of having and swore to treasure for a lifetime. But now, she had become his legitimate younger brother's wife, the madam in other people's mouths. Song Ningyue trembled all over with jealousy and hatred, digging her fingers tightly into the cracks of the floor tiles, completely numb even as her nails split and bled. Serve tea to father-in-law and mother-in-law. The matchmaker stepped forward carrying a tea tray. Xie Yangyang looked calm, stepped forward and reached out her fair hands to pick up the celadon teacup. She walked slowly up to Mother Pei and handed the teacup over with both hands. Mother-in-law, please have some tea. Looking at Xie Yangyang's high and mighty composed look, Mother Pei could no longer hold back the raging fury in her heart. In her eyes, the Pei family ending up in today's state was entirely because this woman was vicious and lacked any sense of the big picture. A malicious glint flashed in Mother Pei's eyes. As she reached out to take the teacup, she deliberately tilted her wrist, wanting to splash the scalding hot tea hard onto the back of Xie Yangyang's hand and lapel. However, Xie Yangyang's move was even faster and more ruthless than hers. The instant Mother Pei's fingertips just touched the edge of the tea bowl, Xie Yangyang's eyes turned instantly cold and her wrist flipped slightly in an extremely natural manner. Smack, crash. The entire celadon teacup filled with scalding tea hit squarely, smashing hard onto the brocade quilt resting on Mother Pei's knees, and the boiling tea and broken porcelain shards instantly exploded across Mother Pei's legs. Ah! Mother Pei let out a blood-curdling shriek like a slaughtered pig, abruptly bouncing up from the soft chair and thrashing around wildly in the main hall from the burn, sending the servants into complete chaos. Yang Yang knows her mistake. Yang Yang stood where she was without even blinking an eye. Her tone as calm as if talking about the weather. Mother-in-law's hands are shaking so badly. It seems your body really is quite ill, unable to even hold a cup of respect tea steady. You venomous woman. You clearly did that on purpose. Mother Pei screeched, pointing at Yang Yang. If mother thinks my wife used too much force, why don't I offer the tea in her place? Pei Huijin took a step forward, completely shielding Yang Yang behind him. His eyes were as cold as an ice cellar, and the terrifying pressure radiating from his entire body forced Mother Pei's curses right back down her throat, scaring her into taking 3 big steps back. Seeing this, Father Pei knew the tide had turned against them today. Suppressing the fury in his heart, he slammed his hand hard on the table. Enough, all of you shut up. Father Pei turned to look at Yang Yang, his tone carrying a hint of almost humble probing and flattering. Yang Yang. As for yesterday's matter, every bit of fault lies with Xiaoheng being foolish. Now that you've entered the Pei family's household and married Huijin, we're still one family after all. The Xie family's major silver houses and silk stores in the city cut off all supply to the Pei family first thing this morning. Do you think business dealings between us should be restored sooner rather than later? Pei Xiaoheng and Song Ningyo also whipped their heads up, looking at Yang Yang with eyes full of hope. This was the Pei family's last life-saving straw. Hearing this, the corners of Yang Yang's lips slowly curled into an extremely mocking arc. She turned around, took a thick account book from Guo's hands, and slammed it onto the large desk in front of Father Pei with a bang. Father-in-law, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. Yang Yang's voice was crisp, every word ringing out like clanging metal, echoing throughout the main hall. My Xie family's top-grade South Sea pearls, shoe brocades and Haitian jade materials have a century of heritage, and have always only supplied the most powerful and cleanest merchant houses in Linan City. Yang Yang glanced sideways at Pei Huijin beside her, a look of haughty disdain for the entire room surfacing in her eyes. Starting today, all the top-tier stock of the Xie family's 13 branch stores in Jiangnan has signed a 10-year exclusive contract with Hanghai Yuming in the west of the city. As for the Pei family, Yang Yang's gaze was cold as a knife, sweeping across Father Pei, whose face was as pale as death, Pei Xiaoheng, who was slumped on the ground, and Song Ningyue, who was trembling in fear. If the 340,000 taels of silver in cash owed to my Xie family is not paid off within 3 days, the chief steward of the Xie Manor and the officers from the government office will naturally come to your door to seal off all the houses and shops under the Pei family's name. Boom. The very last thread of hope was completely crushed into powder. Father Pei's body went limp and he collapsed heavily onto the grand armchair. Pei Xiaoheng clutched his chest, his eyes completely lifeless as he shed tears of blood in regret and despair. Amidst the dead silence and despair filling the hall, Pei Huijin laughed aloud as he wrapped his arm around Yang Yang's slender waist. And under the trembling gazes of the room full of the Pei family, he strode proudly out of the Pei residence main hall with his bride. 1 year later, the autumn rain in Jiangnan fell incessantly, shrouding Linan City in a hazy mist of rain. The shops on both sides of Suke Long Street had long since changed hands. The Pei family merchant house, which had once bustled with customers across several provinces in Jiangnan, was now completely a thing of the past. That entire row of silk shops and jewelry stores in the center of the main street, which used to display gold-embossed signs reading Pei's, had all been seized and auctioned off by the government office during that massive 340,000 tael debt liquidation a year ago. The one who took over these storefronts now was none other than the world-renowned Hanghai Yuming. A luxurious carriage crafted entirely out of golden thread phoebe wood, with bright yellow tassels hanging from its 4 corners, slowly drove through Zhuke Avenue. Surrounded by several armored guards carrying swords. Inside the carriage, it was lined with thick, warm, snow-white fox fur. Yang Yang was wearing the bright red woven gold ceremonial gown of a first-rank mandated lady, with a spread-winged, 9-tailed, ruby-inlaid gold filigree step-shake hairpin inserted slantly in her hair. Her face looked all the more peerlessly exquisite, and her whole body radiated the calm and elegant aura of a ruler. By her side, Pei Huaijin, dressed in an ink-black official robe subtly embroidered with cloud and dragon patterns, had a stern yet composed expression as he was carefully handing a cup of warm red date and bird's nest soup to her lips. Today was the day the couple returned after receiving their titles in the capital city. The massive trade route network secretly operated by Shanghai Yuming joined forces with the Shi family's century-old inherited jewelry and weaving craftsmanship, not only completely monopolizing the silk and jewelry trade in Jiangnan within a year, but also raising millions of taels in military funds and provisions at the beginning of the year for the imperial court to quell the Southwest Rebellion. The emperor was overjoyed, not only personally inscribing and conferring upon Shanghai Yuming the title of world's #1 imperial merchant, but also breaking precedent to decree Pei Huaijin as a vice minister of the Ministry of Revenue of the senior third rank, and granting Xie Yangyang the title of first-rank mandated lady. As the carriage passed a small tea stall at the corner of Long Street, a corner of the carriage curtain was gently blown up by the breeze. Xie Yangyang's gaze casually swept outside the window, landing in front of a mottled and dilapidated tea house. That was once the place where Pei Xiaoheng loved most to entertain Linan's celebrities and talk eloquently about business back in the day. But now the signboard had long since rotted and broken, becoming a tattered shack for beggars sheltering from the rain. Just then, a few old servants in tattered clothes with heads of white hair were kneeling in front of the tightly closed main doors of Shanghai Yuming's main store, bitterly begging the steward on the steps. "I beg you, second master. I beg you, second young mistress. Show some mercy." The old woman in the lead had disheveled hair and was crying her heart out. She turned out to be Mother Pei, who was once insufferably arrogant. After the Pei family business went bankrupt and was seized, Father Pei fell bedridden with illness. To pay off the high-interest debts to the Xie family and outside creditors, the Pei family sold off their ancestral home and all land properties. And the whole family moved into a dark, damp, leaky side room outside the city. Mother Pei couldn't take such a night-and-day drop in status, going crazy all day and asking around everywhere just to meet Xie Yangyang once. Yet she couldn't even reach the threshold of the manor. "Madam, should we stop the carriage and clear the path?" Yanqing outside the carriage asked in a low voice. Xie Yangyang pulled back her gaze, her expression calm and unruffled, without even a trace of extra pity surfacing. "No need. Return to the manor." The carriage didn't even pause for a single step, and with the regal rumble of its wheels, it rolled right past Mother Pei's desperate wailing. Cause and effect run their course, and people reap what they sow. The debts of this world are something the Pei family should settle completely one by one. As for Song Ningyue, Xie Yangyang had heard Quiguo mention that 6 months ago Song Ningyue gave birth prematurely to a weak baby girl in a ruined temple. Mother Pei, who had originally counted on making a comeback through a firstborn son, was bitterly disappointed. She beat and verbally abused Song Ningyue constantly, not even giving her enough to eat. Meanwhile, Pei Xiaoheng's old injuries hadn't healed, leaving him paralyzed in bed, drowning himself in alcohol and regret all day long. Hating Song Ningyue to the extreme and seeing her as the culprit who ruined his entire life. Amidst endless torture and despair, on a midnight filled with rain and thunder, Song Ningyue quietly stole the last 2 taels of broken silver the Pei family had left for medicine, fled Linan City with her baby girl under 6 months old, and had been wandering aimlessly ever since, her whereabouts unknown. An hour later, the carriage stopped before the mountain gate of Lingyin Temple in the west of the city. After the rain, the mountain woods gave off a crisp scent of pine and cypress, and the melodious chime of the ancient temple's bell washed away the impetuousness and noise of the mortal world. Pei Huaijin opened a huge green bamboo oil paper umbrella, slanting most of it over Xie Yangyang's head, shielding her step by step as she walked up the moss-covered stone stairs. Under the ancient pine in the backyard of the ancient temple, a haggard young monk dressed in a coarse grey monastic robe held a broom, sweeping the fallen leaves on the flagstones with his head lowered. His figure was stooped, his right leg slightly limping. Those eyes that were once high-spirited and full of youthful arrogance had now turned into a scene of dead silence and desolation. It was Pei Xiaoheng. Half a year ago he had asked to shave his head and become a monk, taking the Dharma name Liao Chen. Hearing footsteps, the monk stopped the broom in his hand and slowly raised his head. When he clearly saw Pei Huaijin and Xie Yangyang standing side by side before him, Pei Xiaoheng trembled violently all over, the knuckles of his hand gripping the broom turning white. Xie Yangyang before him was clad in fine garments, stunningly gorgeous, as beautiful as a goddess above the 9 heavens. Beside her, Pei Huaijin carried a majestic demeanor, his eyes filled with endless tenderness and cherish for the woman by his side. That was the happiness that had once been within his easy reach, yet crushed and discarded by his own hands. Pei Xiaoheng looked at Xie Yangyang, crimson tears welling in his eyes. He opened his mouth, 1,000 words surging to his throat, but in the end they only turned into an extremely hoarse, heart-rending sob. Yang, I'm sorry. This was the first time in 10 years he uttered those 3 words to her without any scheme or demand, solely for that bucket of dirty water and that sincere heart back then. Xie Yangyang stood on the stone steps, looking down at him from above. A gentle breeze blew the hem of her bright red gown, as the gold-threaded dark bird flickered faintly in the dim light of the forest. There was no hatred or satisfaction in Xie Yangyang's expression, only an indifference and relief after having completely seen through the mortal world. Master Liaochen overstates it, Xie Yangyang spoke softly, her voice ethereal and calm like a mountain spring. Past matters have long turned to dust with the wind. Since Benefactor has already converted to Buddhism, please cultivate well. After saying that, Xie Yangyang didn't linger any longer. Holding Pei Huaijin's arm, she turned and walked slowly into the meditation room. From start to finish, she never looked back at him once. Pei Xiaoheng stood under the open ancient pine, watching that breathtaking figure completely disappear into the morning light. With his hands pressed together in prayer, tears slid silently down his emaciated cheeks, shattering on the cold bluestone. In the afternoon, at Hanghai Yuming Villa, the rain cleared and the sun came out. Warm sunlight filtered through the branches and leaves of the double-petaled crabapples, casting mottled golden light across the bluestone courtyard. Xie Yangyang changed into a comfortable, soft moon-white cloud brocade long dress, leaning back on a red sandalwood rocking chair in the courtyard, holding a delicate, adorable little baby who was barely a month old in her arms. That was her child with Pei Huaijin, born with a pair of long, narrow phoenix eyes identical to Pei Huaijin's, waving chubby little hands at this moment, babbling while grabbing at the strands of hair falling across Xie Yangyang's chest. Clack. A small rattle drum carved from top-grade mutton fat white jade was handed over in front of the little baby. Pei Huaijin had already changed out of his heavy official robes, wearing only a casual black robe as he gathered his hem and sat down on the stone stool beside the rocking chair. He casually took Xie Yangyang's slightly cool fingertips into his palm, gently teasing the baby in swaddling clothes with his other hand. The little baby grabbed the jade rattle drum and giggled aloud, the crisp laughter echoing throughout the flower-scented courtyard. Xie Yangyang turned her head, looking at the man beside her who had shed all his hostility, with nothing but endless tenderness and deep affection left in his eyes. 3 years of endurance, 10 days of scheming, overturned in a single day. She had once thought that sincerity in this world was nothing more than fragile colored glass, only to realize in the end that true deep love is never sweet talk on the lips, but the tranquility and lasting devotion of him sitting with you to watch the moon rise over the sea after clearing away all the storms for you. Pei Huaijin seemed to sense something, turning his head to meet her gaze. The corner of the man's lips curved into an extremely faint yet gentle arc. His slender fingers tightly intertwined with hers as he silently pulled her and the child into his embrace. A gentle breeze blew softly, begonia flowers falling all over their shoulders. The years were peaceful and life was tranquil. Xie Yangyang won, not because she was better at scheming than Pei Xiaoheng, but because she learned to abandon emotional sunk costs in the face of betrayal and turn to systems and leverage. The reason Pei Xiaoheng lost everything was that he mistook kindness for weakness and silence for acquiescence. When he discovered that Xie Yangyang was not on his preset chessboard at all of his bargaining chips, the child, status, family face, became shards that stabbed back at himself. The key to constructing this spring-style narrative lies in finding an irreversible rule fulcrum. Marriage certificates, marriage contracts, government office filings, debt, IOs, these are the hard currency in the story. Feelings can turn sour and reputations can be whitewashed, but black ink on white paper and the red seals of the government office will not. That's why I had Xiang Yang lay the groundwork for the habit of marriage contract filing right at the beginning. So when betrayal occurred, all of her counterattacks were built on letting the evidence speak for itself. This way, the protagonist's victory is no longer good luck or meeting a benefactor, but a predictable outcome of rational choices. This case is closed, and the Xie family's female household business path has only just begun to unfold. The hidden web of Hanghai Yuming and the overt line of the Shi family still have countless undercurrents across the 13 prefectures of Jiangnan. If you're interested in the narrative logic of power couple alliance, institutional revenge, or want to keep following how this couple breaks through via commercial warfare, please stay tuned to Maggie Liu's starred channel. Whether the next scroll is court politics or covert business battles depends on which page you turn to.